Okay, hopefully you guys can hear me. Getting things up and running here. The thing that occurred, so much fun. OBS decided it wanted to update all of a sudden. And there's not anything to update. It updated this morning, so there's no reason why it should have been trying to update now. But it did. It attempted to update. So I'm going to try to get my hosts back on. This is a process, partly because we've had to make changes to how we do things with respect to the use of Discord. Good grief, no, Chrome, I don't want to restore. And we've had to change the way we do things with respect to other software and so on. So, give me just a moment, and I will have everything back up and running. Just gotta go through the process of getting back into the damn chat. And
there you are.
I am back.
Hey.
All right. Now, I hope you guys weren't trying to entertain the
No,
because they couldn't. They couldn't hear. They couldn't hear.
We were just wondering whether we were audible. On
No.
the
You guys were not audible on the stream. All of the sound through this goes through my computer. All the sound for the stream goes through my computer. So I was having to get like, in order to show on the little screen and that little computer in front of us who is talking, I have to have Discord. I can't use the Discord app because that doesn't let me shrink it down small enough to get in that. You can't reduce the size of the display on that. So I'm on Discord. What is it? Discordapp.me or something like that online. It's the online version of Discord. That's why whenever the window I'm using that in goes behind another window and then comes back out because I'm interacting with different windows, it for some reason it then has problems detecting the other people in the call occasionally.
Oh,
so at some point,
yeah,
I know, at some point I intend to find a workaround where I can use just the app instead of going online for Discord. But so we have all this, crap going on, and part of it is System 10 is entirely different from, I'm used to using System 7 Pro, and so I'm still on a learning curve with that too. But the main thing is OBS updated this morning, and it wanted to update again apparently in the middle of the show. And so it froze.
Oh, of course.
And I've turned down the update. So I said, no, I don't want to update right now. But I never had this degree of problems with my computer when I was using System 7 on my desktop. It's just the only problem with my desktop is it's a bit of a dinosaur in comparison to this one. Systems, when I thought people were being silly when they complained about System 10 that it couldn't be that bad, but holy crap, it sucks.
Yeah, well, I mean, speaking as somebody who knows a couple of software developers, essentially you have two guys write the entire thing, and then you have a team of 200 people bug chasing and freaking fixing things and patching and all of that. So it's actually
quite a process.
It is, and it's there, like, launching a software. If anybody ever promises there won't be any bugs or glitches, just tell them to, like,
they're
go
liars.
blow it out their ass, because it's going to be full of bugs and glitches and vulnerabilities and everything else, right? Because you just can't. You touch something over here and something like 800 yards away that's connected by like 1,900 different points of reference, right? The circuitous route of, how these two things are. You touch one thing over here, this other thing breaks, right? It's just, that's why they actually want to know what exactly you were doing when your your Microsoft Word crashed, and you say, I was petting my cat, and they're like, thank you, that actually helps.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
That
it was
helps
not
us
designed
figure
to
out
work
what
when there's
went
a cat
wrong.
in the room.
Yeah.
You have to get rid of this. Is not cat compatible.
Because
Now,
it could be anything. It could fucking be anything. It could literally be because you tried to use italics in Helvetica font fucking 12, right? And decided to turn and you did that while you had track changes on.
yeah.
And
Well,
that
and see, here's the thing.
constellation of things just caused it to fuck up, right?
And I've got OBS running, and then of course, in order to show the chat as it goes through, I have the chat monitor for that, which that's not showing on the screen here either. I can get that to show here in a second, but so I've got that. And that goes, of course, through OBS. Then I've got internet. I've got and then I tried using the browser that came with this computer, and that was bad.
Yeah.
But it's a version of Explorer, so I'm not really surprised by that. Then I've got so I'm using Chrome, and Chrome likes
Chrome
to
is
fuck things up
generally
to
good.
begin with, but.
But the thing with all of this is like the fact that any of it works ever is actually pretty amazing.
It's kind of a miracle right there. I mean, it's about as complex as anatomy and physiology, but at the same time, the thing that can go wrong with these basically is that the people that write it have their thought process going and their individual brand of autism, and then you get a whole bunch of differently autistic people screwing with it before it goes out to the public, and they might fix one thing and mess up 20 others. Well, in any case, that's enough from us about all the complaints about these things.
I actually think this is something that is indicative of it's our ingratitude, right? Oh, like we literally have these fucking magic boxes that can do all of this shit, and then they fuck up every once in a while because they're astronomically complicated, right? And not only are they astronomically complicated, but there are certain people out there who are on an individual level trying to fuck with them and fuck them up.
Well, there is that too.
And so I mean, like, really, like, it fucked up, oh my god, and the stream was interrupted. Is it like, let's have some gratitude.
This is one area in which I can be really grateful to my husband, because his field is in computers, and he is really amazing at getting them to work perfectly. And somehow he's managed to get Windows 10 to look exactly like Windows 7, so I didn't even have to adapt all that much when we switched over, and it's amazing. And I'm so grateful to him for making it so much easier for me.
I regret that when a friend of our family actually wrote a book on how to integrate Linux with your desktop computer, with your desktop operating system on. Back then it was IBM compatible computers, if I remember right, not just desktop. And French Honey Badger just gave us $2 and said, "I'm in your software, smashing your bugs."
Yeah, I mean, that's what he does day in, day out.
This is a guy who is a close friend of my parents, who is somebody. If I just said, "Hey, can you get me started learning this, and so I can expand on it and learn more about it," he'd have been pleased as punch to help me with it. And I didn't at the time think about it, and I really should have, because I wouldn't have been dealing with any of this crap, But
well, with me, like when my guy comes, because he's in software development, and when he comes to me and he starts talking about JSON and fucking JavaScript and fucking object-oriented programming and Visual Basic and Gits and all of this other crap, right? And I just want to fucking punch myself in the face until he stops talking, right? Because it's just boring as fuck to me. I don't care how my computer works. I just care that it works. But at the same time, when he says, I just feel like you don't appreciate what I do, and I'm like, I do. this is a sign of me appreciating what you do, because there is no way you could not pay me enough money to do what you do for a living, to actually freaking write code, deal with libraries, import data, all of this other crap, right? You couldn't pay me enough to do that, right? You are like a magician. You're like a priest. You're like a fucking demigod to me. I don't need to know all of the ways of your godliness, right? I don't need to know how you manage to make these miracles happen. I just, because it is beyond me to understand, right? It is beyond me to understand. I don't need to know. I don't want to know, because I am incapable of understanding it. You are the bee's fucking knees, because you actually do it. And I think that when we look at, just even something like getting Discord to work through Chrome, dealing with the different APIs and everything else, and trying to merge these two programs and make them be able to interface and all of those things, right? Like, this is highly complicated stuff. And you do have to have people up in your software squishing your bugs all the time. And the fact that, we can complain that a stream went down momentarily, and I think that might actually, especially on International Men's Day, given that most computer programmers and software developers are men.
I will say this.
Might be quite fitting in its way.
It is fitting. My dad was one of the first teachers to have worked on a computer as a student when he was training for his degree. And that computer filled an entire room. They had to use punch cards and punch their program into the punch card, and then feed it into the computer, and then the computer would do what it was supposed to do, and it would print something out. And that was what he learned first. And part of it was that it's a thing he and I have in common. There's a lot of things that we're very good at learning, but if you make me learn a language in the classroom that is not the language that I grew up speaking, it's like asking me to climb a mountain. All of a sudden I have to do this thing that I didn't have to do in any of my other classes. Even when I was taking chemistry, I didn't have to study. But when I took a language, for some damn reason, I had to study. Well, with my dad, he had the same problem. But with the computer, the language was essentially arithmetic. And so he didn't have a problem with that. He was great at that. So his university let him substitute learning the computer language that, he's having to learn, binary. But that he did just fine. And of course, that's hooked him his entire life. We've never, since they became affordable for individuals to buy, we've never been without a computer in the house. We started out, I think, oh gosh, we had a Commodore 64, we had some of the old Atari computers, we had some of the old Tandy computers, we had the early Apples, and then he went the Macintosh route, but we also had other brands of computer in the house. We've always had multiple types of computers in the house. And it blew my mind the first time I held a memory storage device in my hand of any type that was like, this is a gigabyte in my hand, because the Commodore 64, took up your entire desktop, and it was 64K.
Yeah, no, Commodore 64.
And here we are.
Yeah.
Here we are with a gigabyte in your hand, and now that's nothing. A gigabyte's nothing. It's not even enough memory to work with now. If you want to store the things that we make, like my videos, it just a gigabyte wouldn't do me any good.
I know.
I'd be screwed if that was all I had. And I started out working on a computer that didn't store anything.
I have a 4 terabyte hard drive, external hard drive that French Honey Badger was kind enough to send me. unasked for. I'm so very grateful to him. But yeah, it is like, I remember the Commodore 64, that we were early adopters of everything. We had a car phone back when it was like an actual phone in a case, like in a briefcase that plugged into your car lighter. And
they used to call them bag phones too.
Had a handset and a cord, linking it. And it was called a car phone. It wasn't called a cell phone. Like we were the first family on, within a 5-block radius to get a VCR, all of those things. Right. And so we had this Commodore 64 and it was like 64 bytes, right? And 64 bytes of memory and 64 bits of RAM or something like that. Right? And everybody was like, yeah, that's the most any family would need. And it's like, that wouldn't even hold anybody's freaking photo album these days. So, yeah.
I started desktop publishing on a Macintosh SE, and it had what was it? It had 20,000 K, if I remember right. I may have that wrong.
Right, kilobytes.
Yeah,
kilobytes. Yeah, 64 kilobytes.
Yeah, it was, and it had 20,000 K. My dad had a Mac Classic, and it had 40,000. And I just thought, how could you ever fill 40,000 K? And I was making like, I goofed around with the desktop publishing software too. I mean, I used it for work and everything, but I also made my D&D character sheets. I made my own D&D character sheets on it that were more suited to the way, I need this information the most often, so I'm going to put it where, in this area of the sheet, and I need this information the least often, so I'm going to put it off here in the area that I don't see as easily and everything. And, I did all kinds of stuff. I had graphics and everything on there, and it didn't fill that up. And now it's like, I wouldn't be able to do anything on that computer today. And it has progressed so quickly, just so amazingly quickly. Like, I remember when a laser printer that printed 8 pages a minute was really fast, and now it just sort of spits them out like like a copy machine, which that at one point there was no such thing as that either.
We had a dot matrix printer to go along with our Commodore 64, right?
Right.
So then you had to peel the little perforated sides off the paper, right? That, because they had the edges, the borders of the paper.
Had those it had to have something to turn the roll.
Yeah, to fit into the gears. And oh my God, it was just like, and then when I think about it, my mom grew up in a household initially where they didn't have an indoor toilet. They had in the summer they used the outhouse. In the winter they used what they called the chemical can, which was a indoor porta potty that you had to empty frequently. They had running water in the kitchen only. And it was cold running water. You had to heat anything. So if you wanted to have a bath, you would actually set the bathtub in the kitchen and heat water on the stove and put it in the bathtub, and then everybody would have their bath. And that's where "don't throw the baby out with the bath water" comes from, is because the baby was the last one in the bath, and the bath water was so opaque that you wouldn't necessarily realize that there was a baby in there when you carried the bathtub to the door and threw the water out in the yard. So I mean, like, and she would wake up in the morning in winter, and her wash basin she would have to break the ice on the pitcher of water next to her wash basin and to pour the water in and splash her face with ice cold fucking water.
Well, that'll wake you up. That's better than any alarm clock, right?
Wake you up, right? And she, I mean, like, she grew up in this kind of environment. They had a radio, and they used to listen to, sort of radio plays and stuff like that were on the radio station and all of this, right? But they didn't have a TV until she was well into her teens, right? That was when they got their first TV. So, I mean, when you look at that difference between my mother and how she grew up and me, you know, I grew up with telephones that had long cords. It used to be your telephone was in a little telephone nook in the hallway, the front hallway of your house, and you would stand up and talk on the phone right there, because it wasn't for conversation. It was for making arrangements. It was actually for, yeah, you're coming over. Okay, come over, and then we'll talk. You know, I grew up with hot and cold running water. I grew up with not just bathtubs, but showers. I grew up with flushing toilets. I grew up with electric lights, not gas lights. I grew up with all of these things that, you know, you flip a switch, it just comes on. The furnace doesn't need to be stoked every 4 hours at night. You don't need to get up every 4 hours and shovel more wood into your furnace to keep the house warm enough that people don't freeze to death overnight.
In fact, right? It's possible in some areas that your heat source doesn't have a pilot light that has to be lit because it's electric, like the one in my apartment.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll have a little electronic spark thingy.
And all these advances, and we had, there's this in my parents' lifetime, men actually took a traveling craft, right? A transportation device. They broke Earth's pull of gravity with it and actually went to the moon, landed on it, walked out of it. They had created spacesuits to protect themselves from the lack of environment on the moon. They gathered things and brought them back, and they landed without dying. And at the start, my dad grew up in a house. At the start of his life, they didn't even have running water. They had a cistern. They didn't have like a sewer system. They had an outhouse and a cistern. And he grew up in the same community as Neil Armstrong. My grandmother, on my dad's side of the family, went to the school that Neil Armstrong went to. She was younger than he was, but she went to the school that Neil Armstrong went to. And this is a huge degree of advancement, and all of the difficulty it took to do that. It's between the lifetime during which it was a miracle, at the end of the 60s. Now it's routine. We don't even go to the moon anymore. Space flight is routine. We have space stations. We're talking about terraforming another planet, for God's sake. We haven't actually got it done yet, but this is all innovation driven by male curiosity and male interest and a male desire to improve the situation for the people around them. I want to move the conversation on from that, though, because we have discussed it quite a bit. And I want to point out the other thing that I wanted to bring up today, because this is the month of International Men's Day. And we are talking about a day that focuses, among other things, on men's health. So I'm gonna mention something that is very, very important with regards to men's health. It's the 11th month of the current year, and you know what that means. Time to draw attention to a men's health initiative that is near and dear to our hearts here at Honey Badger Radio for obvious reasons. The Movember Foundation. Originally, the Movember Foundation was just an idea a couple of friends hatched over a couple of beers. As its history describes, a quiet beer at the Gypsy Bar in Fitzroy. The Movember Foundation has become an international awareness-raising and fundraising initiative focusing on 3 main areas of men's health: prostate cancer, testicular cancer, and mental health, and along with mental health goes suicide prevention. They are partnered now. They started out just raising money for one organization. They are partnered now with men's health charities of a variety of types that span those 3 areas in over 20 countries and have funded 1,200 men's health projects since 2003. So I wanted to direct anybody that's interested in the Movember Foundation and seeing what you can do. You can find out 10 different ways in which you can get involved by going to shoot, I actually had that and I just hit a button and it's gone. Really? I believe it's movemberfoundation.com. Let me take a, it's movemberfoundation.com. And I'm going to double check this because apparently I have stupid fingers.
All I know is we were heading to McDonald's to get some French fries for my guy because that's one of the only things that he can eat that's prepared in a restaurant, is McDonald's French fries. And we saw a billboard that had a picture, of some men and the slogan "Stop men dying too young."
Yep, that's their slogan this year, and it's
and we were like, oh wow, like they actually somebody actually paid for billboards in Edmonton, Alberta, for Movember. That's awesome. That's actually really great, and I think that Movember really, really, really is important. I wouldn't say that they're a men's rights organization, but they are very, very, very important.
Well, and I want to point out, Movember does not actually. They're not associated with us particularly. They're not affiliated with us. They're not responsible for anything we do, think, or say. We may not even agree on everything. But it's
or anything
other than that we agree on men's health.
Men dying too soon.
Yeah, and that's. Yeah. But it is a very important men's rights cause. And I just noticed I do have a $2 super chat from Mentalist MGTOW asking if we are supporting Movember Foundation. I do not know if we have supported them financially, but we are definitely interested in promoting information about it because this is a men's initiative. It's for men's health. It's beneficial to men. And I strongly believe, and I think the rest of us all strongly believe, that this is an initiative that the men's rights movement should be supporting. And
someone asked in the chat whether they chose November because of Veterans Day. I don't know. I don't know whether the Australian equivalent of Veterans Day falls in November. So, but they may have. If it does, that may have been a reason why they did it.
I don't think so. In fact, if I looked at they have a history story. That's where I got the information about the quiet beer at the Gypsy Bar in Fitzroy, and I think the timing actually simply was based on, this is when they made this decision in the first place. So it doesn't. I don't think it has anything to do with anything else in particular going on in that month. If you go to their website, and their website is in the U.S., it's us.movember.com. But if you just go to Movember.com, it doesn't have to be MovemberFoundation.com, it's Movember.com, or if you look on, and that's M with that starts that, not N. If you look up like Movember mustache. Foundation online, it'll give you the information as well. But no, according to their story, and if you click on their About Us and you click on their story, our story, the first thing that you look at gives you a link to the actual tale of their start, a hairy tale, the history of Movember's early years. And it says, in 2003, two mates from Melbourne, Australia, Travis Garone and Luke Slattery, were having a quiet beer at the Gypsy Bar in Fitzroy when their conversation turned to recurring fashion trends. The mustache, a fixture of past decades, was nowhere to be seen in recent years. They joked about bringing it back. The two friends decided to talk their mates into growing a mo. Inspired by a friend's mother who was fundraising for breast cancer, they decided to make the campaign about men's health and prostate cancer. They designated the rules of Movember, which are still in place today, and agreed to charge $10 to grow a mustache. And that's basically how it happened. They found 30 guys willing to take up the challenge. They grew their mustaches with enthusiasm. They continued it the next year when they decided to formalize the concept. and start growing a cause. And it's been growing every year since then. If you go to their about page, their our story page, you can see their growth year by year from 2003 to 2017. All of the details that got added every year, the new charities, the new developments in what they were doing, you know, their expansion from Australia to other countries. It's really been a very neat story, how this has expanded, and what it's done for men's health has been excellent. It's been something that that's actually drawn a significant amount of attention to prostate cancer, to testicular cancer, to male suicide. It's been a real boon to the men's health and of the men's issues discussion. Now, on my computer, it's displaying us.movember.com. I've got somebody, it just flashed up in my screen a minute and then disappeared here. Mentalist MGTOW said it's movember.us web address.
Yeah.
So it may display differently for different people, I guess, or for different systems.
Yeah, no, when I look up owningyourshit.blogspot.com, it always sends me to blogspot.ca. So, what I wanted to actually also add in, you know, Movember is excellent. It's a wonderful initiative. You know what else is another wonderful initiative is the nonprofit organization that is developing Vasil Gel, which is it is a non-permanent, reversible birth control, fertility control option for men that acts kind of like a vasectomy. It's an injection. They inject a polymer into your vas deferens on both sides. It does not have the same kinds of complications that vasectomy does. The vasectomy is associated with certain long-term complications because the sperm cannot escape. They hit that barrier and then they die, and then they have to be reabsorbed, and that causes stress on the reproductive system. But with Vasil Gel, the sperm actually travel through the polymer and get shredded like they're in a cheese grater, and they come out dead and shredded to pieces on the other side, and it lasts for 10 to 15 years. And it can be reversible anytime with a second injection of baking soda and water, which is hilarious, actually, to me, how simple it is. And in India, where it was developed, it's called Rysug in India, it can cost as little as $10 to get this done. So essentially, it's a very, very low cost way for men to temporarily control their fertility, to essentially sterilize themselves, and then be able to decide without any of the complications or problems, or, you know, you only have a 50% chance of fathering a child if you reverse your vasectomy 10 years later. No, all of that is done away with. You can be in control of your fertility. And the hilarious fucking thing is that no pharmaceutical companies want anything to do with this, because it would you would have this one single low cost, one-time procedure, right? That would replace expensive monthly oral contraceptives for women. Right. So they don't want to cut into their own profits by developing this. So it has to be developed in the US by a nonprofit organization that is now, I believe, in human trials. So they're close, and they are taking donations. So if you have money and you want to put it somewhere, throw Movember a little something, throw Vasil Gel, VASELGEL, a little something.
Now, the website for Vasil Gel is in the United States is parsmus.org. It's spelled PARSEMUS.org. And there's that one where you can also track the process. You can see how far along they are. You can see what is yet to happen and what they've achieved and so on.
What I think is interesting is pharmaceutical companies were willing to do human trials with a hormonal birth control pill for men, right? And the reason why they were willing to do that is because it's a monthly fucking thing that men would have to pay for. And this is a temporary but essentially permanent, if you want it, a way to control your fertility that's extremely low cost. And so there's no profit in it.
Right. But I wanted to point out something else too. They have other projects listed. If you look at their other projects menu, they're looking into new treatments for enlarged prostate. The list includes testosterone, cognition, and aging men. So they're investigating that as well. They have an ongoing project related to evidence-based medicine. And the fact that we have to have that is kind of sad, because there was a point at which that's all we did in terms of medicine. Men had pulled medicine around to the point where we weren't casting spells on people and you know, using herbs, but we didn't know why they work. We just know they did, and things like that, to where now we know why something works, what its side effects are, why it has those side effects, and so on. They're looking at a number of different things here. So this is actually an organization that does a wide variety of things, and not all of them are. I mean, there's some of them are birth control related, but there are other things that they're doing for men as well. And in addition to that, I wanted to bring up Foragen. Foragen.org is the site for an institution that is researching regrowing your foreskin. If you have been circumcised and you don't want to be circumcised, and you know you don't want that loss, this is advanced. They're working at advancing regenerative medicine, basically. Like you get a skin graft. Yeah, it's stem cells. It's stem cells, using your own adult stem cells, no less. So you're not. It's not something that you'd have to worry that you're getting tissue from somebody else that your body might reject. It's not something to worry about. You're getting tissue from somebody else, and it might be. It might have been wrongly taken. You know, you're not getting somebody else's pilfered foreskin, like, you know, from neonatal circumcision or anything like that. This is actually about giving men the choice to restore what was taken away from them during neonatal circumcision. And they're actually, what they're researching, it has promise for this, but it also has promise for burn victims and people who have had severe skin damage from other circumstances. It actually has promise for people who have had broken bones. It has promise for people who have had any kind of tissue damage that has been devastating enough that it has left your organ that the tissue was damaged on permanently altered. We have the Crimson Fucker says, I have one question. Does vasal gel mean you can't come? No, it does not. It will not prevent you from doing anything except impregnating somebody.
And frankly, your cum will taste exactly like it tasted before you got the procedure, because it has all the same ingredients. It's just some of them have been minced.
Yeah, it'll taste like it's been through a blender, which won't have any effect on it at all. But these are all organizations that this is a men's health organization. This is essentially attempting to restore an area of health that has been taken away. And so I would definitely recommend also taking a look. And it's FOREGEN, Foragen.org.
Wherefore
this.
Friendship says, thank God, I was really concerned with the taste of these men's cum.
Yes, definitely. And then the other one, like I said,
if you were that concerned, you'd all just eat pineapple and nothing else. Thank you.
There you go. The other one, the one for vasal gel, again, is Parsemus, PARSEMUS.org. And so those are good organizations as well. And again, the Movember Foundation is Movember, like the month November with an M instead of an N.com. and it'll take you to whichever version of it is for your country. Because I just tried it. I typed it in just Movember.com, and my browser corrected it to us.movember.com. So those are three organizations that I would recommend definitely checking out and supporting. Another that I would recommend, A Voice for Men, has a new health initiative also. Well, it's not new now, but it was new this year. I believe it's An Ear for Men. And I'm going to, anearformen.com. And this is also a mental health initiative, and it is about promoting not just mental health, but mental health from the standpoint that your masculinity, well, exactly the way Paul put it, your masculinity isn't the problem. So I definitely recommend checking out anearformen.com as well. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Karen for a minute, because you were going to say something and I interrupted you.
Oh yeah, well, I was going to say somebody said something about the pineapple juice changes the taste of things and changes your body's chemistry. It actually has a enzyme in it that makes it so that if you put pineapple in Jello, the Jello won't set. And that generally means that, the product of your most glorious outpouring of appreciation for femininity, if you get my euphemism, will actually not only taste nicer, but it will be less goopy.
That's interesting to know.
And more smooth.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I'm going to go ahead and I have a super chat. Ryan Field gave us $2 and said, Vassal Gel won't stay nonprofit. I hope they don't stay nonprofit. I hope that once this is on the market, they do make a profit. That'll keep it on the market. Things that are profitable, and it should be profitable, things that are profitable continue to remain on the market. Things that are not profitable fall by the wayside. So guys, if you want this, I think it's vital to support it.
Yeah, the only reason why pharmaceutical companies are not supporting it is because they have more profitable long-term monthly, like they're collecting between $10 and $50 every month from every woman who's on the pill. And if their male partners, right, if every woman in a committed relationship could get her male partner to spend $300 on a one-time thing that lasts 10 to 15 years, and then they never had to worry about the pill again, right? That would represent a major loss to those pharmaceutical companies. So because pharmaceutical companies are already in the business of providing birth control pills on a monthly basis for profit, they're not looking to create something that is relatively cheap. It's a one-time thing, and it would undercut that. And it's sort of like nobody's interested in curing cancer if they have a treatment that costs a lot of money, right? But once this nonprofit organization is done actually developing the product, I'm sure they will be launching it through a for-profit business once they get approval to actually do it. They'll patent it, and they'll actually start providing it for profit, and they'll be making money. And they won't be in the same position as the pharmaceutical companies, because they aren't putting out a product that directly competes with this and that earns them more money. No, this is something that, this is their one reproductive technology that they are they're working on, and they want it to corner the market, and they don't mind costing Merck and Pfizer and all of these other companies a massive chunk of their business, right? That's really what it is. That it has to be done by a competing company.
I recommend tracking this to everybody. I recommend tracking this. Keep an eye on what happens. As it starts to go through the approval process, after they get everything set and they're ready to start asking for government approval, can we put this on the market? The first thing that you'll see is these other companies will start lobbying against it. So when we talk about supporting this company, we're not just talking about money. Be ready to start a counter lobby, because there will need to be one. And if I'm right, and that happens, that these companies start lobbying against this, that is going to tell us something that feminists don't necessarily want to admit, because they argue for government-funded female birth control. They argue for government-paid birth control pills on the basis that it's mostly women using them for health reasons, not to prevent pregnancy so they can have sex without getting pregnant, but because they have painful periods, or because they have, hormonal imbalance caused emotional problems, or they have all kinds of other things that go wrong with their system, that they just all need these birth control pills that just happen to have the side effect of stabilizing your cycle. And if that was the case, this wouldn't have an impact on any sales of these products. They wouldn't have to worry that birth control use was going to be reduced among women, because they would still have to have those functions regardless of whether the guy could get them pregnant or not, right? But if these companies are so terrified that they're going to lose their birth control customers that they lobby against Vasogel, that will tell us that they know the majority of their consumers are consuming strictly for birth control. Not stops, Joey Jojo. Joey Jojo says, wait, birth control stops periods. In extreme circumstances, you can take it in such a way that it mostly stops them, but it doesn't do that normally. That's not what it's normally used for. Normally, it just stabilizes them so that they happen on the same days every month, and they happen for the same number of days every month, and you have they're not quite as prolific, we'll say that. And I'm not going to describe the rest because it can get gross, but the hormonal end of it stabilizes that as well. If you have an extreme imbalance to where you become
it can help you
emotional in the way that, you're a person that just had a miscarriage would be. This kind of prevents that.
Yeah, if you have premenstrual syndrome, PMS, very severe, or PMDD, right? It can help with that. It like birth control and polycystic ovarian disease and things, things like that, right?
Endometriosis,
all of those things.
But once again, we will learn. We will learn if we see a lobbying effort against Vasogel. We will learn that those reasons for using this medication are a minority among the purchases, which is something I believe anyway. I believe the majority of women that buy birth control pills so they can fuck without getting pregnant. That's it.
Well, of course they do. And what's really frustrating is every single time you have a situation where a company, maybe like a Hobby Lobby type company, says, or that university in Boston or wherever the fuck it was, that's a Catholic university, says we don't want to pay for. You remember Fluke, right? Sarah Fluke.
Yeah, the 3,000 a day lady that was at Wrestling Bus said she's got to be having sex like 3,000 times a day or something.
Well, but she was like, they don't want to pay for these birth control pills. Women need these birth control pills for these particular reasons, to correct these medical issues, right? But the thing is that the university, their insurance that they provided, if you have a medical need, one of these needs, PMS, PMDD, polycystic ovarian disorder, endometriosis, really bad cramps, whatever, if you have a medical need for it, all you need to have is your doctor say it's prescribed for a medical reason, not for contraception, and you'd get them. and the university would pay for them because that's a medical treatment of a disorder. It's a medical treatment of a physical dysfunction in your body.
And it's that way with just about everything. They do the same thing with nose jobs. You can get a nose job because you think your nose is ugly and you want it fixed. But there are things that also end up having to be corrected. Like if you have a deviated septum that is so bent that it presses against one of your sinuses and causes it blockage and an infection, and it can be dangerous, well, then they have to break your nose and fix that too. But it's both surgeries are called rhinoplasty because that's what they are doing.
I know.
They're plastic surgery on your nose. I had to have that.
Nick is waiting in a waiting list because he actually just did a sleep test.
Yeah.
And apparently he wakes. His sleep apnea is so bad from the fact that he has a cleft lip and palate. And he also had his nose broken. Times. He wakes 60 to 75 times an hour every night. Wow. No wonder he's fucking crazy.
Well, that would kill me. But yeah, what they have to do a lot of times when you're on a waiting list like that, one of the things you have to do is have your doctor write a letter to your insurance company to prove that you're not having rhinoplasty because you want to look pretty. Because the insurance company isn't responsible for you wanting to look pretty, but it is responsible, since it's your medical insurance company. It's responsible for you being able to breathe, and there's a significant difference there. And saying that women shouldn't have to justify their birth control.
My husband has to have a septoplasty too, actually, and I'm just glad that we don't have to worry too much about all of that stuff being in Canada. But there was a significantly long waiting list. So
in the U.S. we have like my mom actually gave him a terrible catch-22. I was a senior in high school when I had to have this surgery, and it was so bad. When I was in choir, when I had the last infection before they did the surgery, the stuff in my sinuses was so tightly packed, and it was liquid, that when the sopranos in the choir sang, I could feel it in my face. Ooh. And it was vibrating my face and make me feel dizzy. And it really was rough because it happened during the time period that we were practicing the songs from Handel's Messiah. So you had the Hallelujah chorus and those high notes and everything. So I mean, this is something, and like something like that, you can have damage to your eyes. You can have damage actually you can get a blood infection. You can have damage to your body from that, and you can have damage to your brain. So it has to be fixed. But they weren't going to do it. They weren't going to allow it. So my mom sent them a picture and demanded that they explain to her why they thought I needed rhinoplasty to look better. Well, that's an incredibly politically incorrect thing for them to say. She put them in a position of having to argue that I wasn't pretty enough to not need rhinoplasty, or admit that I looked fine on my own, and that it must be a medical thing. And nobody wanted to touch that question with a 10-foot pole. It was the do these pants make my ass look fat of medical arguments. And so they approved it. I probably could have looked like Miss Piggy and they would have approved it. But we got my mom's very smart. We got a super chat from Meximan and Cheese, gave us $5 and said thanks for caring. It's always wonderful to hear that, but it bugs me that not more people do. And I guess that's one of the reasons I picked this topic tonight, is I want to see more people focusing on what we can do to unify the sexes instead of divide them. And I want to see more people focusing on, we do need what men do in society, for society to function and for society to continue, for us to continue as a race. If we want the human race to continue to thrive on this planet, we need to be able to appreciate men and to support men. And so, That was pretty much it. That was my main reason for choosing Movember as a topic. I mean, it would have been a news story we would have covered anyway because it is a men's issue. But I think the fact that we are starting to see more openness in society, again, towards celebrating masculinity, as hard as feminists are fighting against it, there are more and more people coming forward with, yes, it is right to celebrate masculinity. It is right to celebrate fathers. It is right to celebrate the builders and the creators of our civilization. And so I'm very happy that this is growing, and I want to see it continue to grow. And that's basically it for the show and the discussion and everything. I wanted to sort of bring everybody else into that, sort of bring everybody else to the understanding that this is it's not just a day of remembering and celebrating and promoting things. It's actually an initiative towards a change of social attitude. And seeing that sort of start, that's actually huge. So I'm going to end the stream. I'm not going to end the stream with the usual shill for gosh, I don't even have it up, so I can't. It's not Feed the Badger. It's the other badgerfeed.com. They had to have similar names because we aren't dyslexic enough, right? But we're fighting a hell of a fight right now. We're working on the hopeful end of our case. And this isn't just our fight. This fight is for anybody that has had to deal with a corporate entity essentially using vaguely worded rules and vaguely or blatantly unequal and inconsistent enforcement to screw them out of something. Because that's basically what happened to us. When you take all of the politics out of it, vaguely worded rules and inconsistent enforcement of them were used to screw us out of the cost of being there at the Calgary Expo in 2015. So in January, following our previous hearing, we emerged victorious against our opponents' delaying and obfuscation tactics, and boy did they try. Well, mostly we were victorious. The one thing they did manage to do was delay the case until November. And wait, holy shit guys, it's November now! And I guess that's why Allison put up a fundraiser to get us back to Calgary for another round in the courtroom. So to help us go duke it out, please go to feedthebadger.com and click on the featured project, Infiltrating Alberta Civil Court, Disguised as Ourselves. Wait and see, they'll use that claim to be disguised as ourselves as an argument against us.
Oh God, probably.
I mean, I really would not be surprised. But folks.
Well, all I know is I've looked at some of the stuff, the evidence and all of that, and I just find it amazing that Calgary Expo believed that people voicing their political opinions online, not even us, just people voicing their objection to us getting kicked out, was a matter for the Calgary police.
Yeah, that's kind of sad.
Oh my God.
But I'm thinking about it. We've really done something remarkable. I mean, no space leper has ever infiltrated this far into any earthly institution. We've gone farther than any other space lepers out there. One of these days we're going to catch up with the lizard people. With your help, we could go all the way. That didn't come out right. Just go to feedthebadger.com, okay? Help a leper out.